Hello everyone, welcome to Malik Joe 34 channel. This is Malik Arjun. The today's session is going to be on handling a difficult conversation. So first of all, if you think of conversation, we'll be having hundreds of conversation in our day-to-day life. So either the conversation with your families or with relatives, or if you're working at a IT professional, you will be having a conversation with your teammates or your team leads or your senior managers or your managers, right? So the conversation should be very healthy, and the conversation should not go in a worst condition or should not be argument level. So I'm going to give you some of the tips how you can handle the difficult conversation, and then how you can benefited out of it, and how both the parties can benefited out of it. First of all, if I can give you one or two crucial scenarios where the conversation plays very important role. If you're working in IT industry, the first of all your performance appraisal discussion with your manager, and your bonus hike discussion with your manager, or any new process or new implementation in the team or in the project. So to have a conversation, to have a discussion with among the team, among the manager, it's a very important. So you have to handle those situation, those discussions in a very comfort zone, and you should both the parties should get benefited out of it. And the conversation should not go in a worst condition, and it should not be lead to the argument level. So I'm sure with this today's session, most of you guys will get benefited out of it, and then how you can handle the any conversation and how you can lead the conversation, right? And before I start with the today's session, if you are new to my channel, I always request you to go back to YouTube and search for Malik034, and then please do subscribe. And if you missed out my previous videos, you can always find it in my YouTube channel. And if you like my videos, please share, like, and comment. Let's start with the today's session. The objective of this conversation, today's discussion, definition of conversation, and what are the healthy and unhealthy components. And then the other point is examine various technique to minimize negative consequences in the conversation, right? So whenever you start a conversation, it should be a happy ending or happy ending note, or both the parties should benefited out of it, and it should not go to the negative extreme, and it should not be at the argument level. And I'm going to teach some of the techniques out of it, how to handle this. And coming to the conversation, what is difficult conversation? First of all, understand what is difficult conversation. When you said something, when you are done something, or when you are given something that causes or has a potential to cause other party to react unfavorably. So if you say something and if you receive reaction from the opponent which is unfavorable to you, that is leads to the difficult conversation. If the opponent party is agreed and if he can respond back to you favorably, then the conversation is going to end. There's no more further conversation about that. If the reaction coming from the opponent is not favorable to you, then that leads to the difficult conversation, and that will goes on, and then it may end up with a happy note, or it may end up with argument level. So if you get this difficult conversation, how you can handle it? And to handle that situation, you should understand what are healthy component and unhealthy component. So if you see here left hand side, healthy component, readiness for the conversation. If you are going to give any presentation, if you are going to demonstrate anything, or if you are going to show some new achievement, or whatever you achieved, and you should have a idea on that, and you should be prepared for that. And if you're going for any seminars or any presentation, you should first ready yourself, and then you can confidently present it to the audience, right? So that's the first thing. And second thing, thoughtfulness about the impact to the receiver. So if you say something, if you present something, and what is the impact at the present at the receiver, the audience. So you should convey that message first. So with this implementation, what is going to achieve in the future, and then how much it is impacting to the audience, that you should convey that message, and then that is going to be very impactful presentation. And respectful message delivery. If you are saying something, and first of all you should love that one, and if for the namesake, if you want to give the seminar, and then if you present something, and for the namesake, if you want to do the conversation, and then do start the conversation with your colleagues, and nobody listen to your words, and nobody have a time to listen to your words. So the message what you are going to deliver to the audience or your teammates, it should be very respectful, and the audience or the opponent person is keen to know that, right? And the fourth healthy component is active listening. So suppose if you are listening any conversation, or if you are an audience, and you should be an active listener, then only that conversation between you and presenter is going to be very effectiveness. And matched body language and words, the what you are saying and your body should act to those words. And if you're saying something and your body is body reaction is something, then it is not going to be effective conversation. For example, if you're looking at something and saying at something, and if you're pointing at something and then saying something, and if your mind and your body is not in sync, then that is definitely going to be worst conversation, and it is not going to be impactful. And proper timing for the conversation, so you should ask for the opponent or the audience the when you are going to present your presentation. And if you are presenting within your team, and you should ask the other teammates, and what are their free schedules, and what is suitable time. And when you are trying to have a discussion with your senior manager or your management, and you are a manager, you have to check for opponent timing, what is the best time, and then when we can start this conversation. And then the last point is transparency. There should be transparency, should not be any hidden truth or hidden fact behind your conversation. It should be open, and then it's a clear understanding and clear cut message, and what is you are going to achieve, and what is your presentation, and why you are presenting it. So that is going to be transparent to the both the parties. These are the healthy component. And coming to the unhealthy component, like accusation before having a fact together, right? So if you're before collecting the fact from the other side, you are directly accusing something, so that is going to be leading to the unhealthy component. Arrogance and lack of compassion, if you are not having a compassion towards your what you are telling and what the conversation you are having, so obviously it is going to be leading to the bad conversation, and it is going to be argument level. And engaging your mouth before your head has a time to think of. No, without thinking of opponent, and you should not start speaking, right? So as in our childhood we can say, right, think before you ink, like similar kind, think before you say something, right? You have to think, and then you open your mouth, right? And then having to be right, you should not always be in a situation that you are always right. You should be ready to accept your fault, and you should be ready to listen to the opponent words, and then you should think of which is right and which is wrong. And jumping to the conclusion without hearing the all sides, so you say and you propose something, and then you can conclude this is a fact, that is going to be leading to the unhealthy conversation, because you have to listen to the opponent, you have to listen to the other sides, and then you have to combine all together, and then you have to think of which is right and which is wrong. And unwilling to listen, so you have to listen to the other side. If you are not listening, you always think you are right. If you listen to the other person, then you will have other thought to compare between your thought and the opponent thought. So you should be first of all active listeners. And not owning your part to play, so if you are like not participating actively, or if you are not taking your role, obviously that is going to be unhealthy conversation. These are like healthy and unhealthy components for the when you are dealing with the difficult conversation. And one of the key point is watch out for the avoidance. It is easy to say no for anything, it is easy to say yes for anything, which we feel uncomfortable, we will easily avoid it. Always don't do that one, because the changes are permanent. Always you should be flexible enough to acquire any changes. So first point says easy to avoid what's uncomfortable, right? So if something change is coming in your project, or something change is coming, and you should think of what is that change, and what is the impact, and how helpful, and then what is the future focus. And then it is easy to accommodate that change. If you don't do all these things, then you can easily avoid that things, right? whatever it is uncomfortable, we our human behavior is to always we will avoid it, which is not uncomfortable. See, now we are doing a day-to-day process and we are easy, we are managing it, and we are so comfortable with that. And then if some suddenly some changes comes, and then it is going to be uncomfortable, and then we initially try to avoid that. And then after the external force comes, and HR comes, and then manager comes, and then they'll say it's a mandatory, you have to do it, then we will do it, right? So rather than going in that direction, the moment any changes comes, you have to think of what is that change and what is the impact and how it is going to help us, and then what is the future focus for that due to that change. And then if you analyze all these things, you can easily you can accept that change, and then you will used to it, and then you will be so happy with that change if you do your homework. If you don't do all these things, and there's the external factors comes, and then they will force you, and then they will make you to accommodate that change, and then you will used to it at the end, right? So rather than going in that direction, first do your homework, and then it will be avoid anything which is uncomfortable. And not serving anyone. See, if you are proposing something, and if that change is coming, and if it is not serving anyone, then you can, there's a point to avoid that. And then you have a discussion with that opponent, and then you come to a conclusion, and what is the impact with that change, and what is the benefit with that change, and then come to the conclusion whether to implement that change or not to implement that change. And then what you can do in that situation, ask a questions. As I said, like the change is coming, you should ask what is the change, why you are doing it, and what is the impact, and what is the future focus. Ask the questions, and then get a clear understanding of that change. And remember, it is up to you and no one else. Like that change is coming, it is up to you whether to take that change, or avoid that change, and that will impact on you, and it will not impact on anyone else, right? And what are the role of body language, right? So as I said, like your body language and your thoughts and your words will be in sync whenever you are presenting something. And what is the impact, what is the role of body language? The big three blind spots are the tone of your voice, facial expression, and body language. These three are called the big three blind spots. The listener is very aware of these three things, and not the talker. If you're saying something, you will not be aware of these three things, but the opponent person, the audience, the listener will be very much aware of these three things, and you should be very careful of these three things. And if you see here, your body language plays a very very important role, and the 55% of message what you are trying to say, it will be conveyed by your body language. And 38% of the message what you are trying to convey, it is conveyed by tone of your voice. Which tone or which pitch level you are talking, that will impact the audience or the opponent. And the only 7% of the impact is given by the words what you speak. And if you see here, body language and voice of tone, that together plays very very important role. So you have to practice before you present anything. And one of the key advantages, one of the key factors for this healthy conversation is for active listening. You should be an active listener. So whenever you are demonstrating something, you should understand whether the opponent is actively listening or not. Or whenever you are listening something for the demonstration given by your teammate, you should be an active listener, and you should demonstrate it in advance. Before you're going to the presentation, you have to demonstrate it, and then you used to come into comfort zone, and then you should be owner of that presentation. And ask questions when you are when the demonstration is happening, and when you are listening something, you have to ask question. Then if you are asking question, then that says that you are active listener and you are listening to the opponent, and let speaker know that you understand. So if something you are attending any conversation or you are in any presentation, you should always ask question, get the opportunities and take that opportunities, and then always ask the questions, so that the opponent, the presentation, who is giving presentation will know that you are actively listening and you are understanding his words, and then he will be more energetic to give more information, right? Active listening plays very very important role. And some of the key steps in handling the difficult conversation I have divided in three phases, like prepare, open, and ask or discuss. The prepare phase is like, before going into any conversation, or before giving any presentation, or before starting any meeting or any webex meeting or whatever it is. Identify what you want to address. So if you're setting up a meeting, and first think of what you are going to discuss, what you are going to address. Behavior, either in a behavior format or a action or a result or a practical needs. All the aspects, all the facts you have to collect, and you have to prepare for that, and choose how you want it to go, whether you want to go it in a two-way conversation or one-way conversation, or or whether it is going to be video, audio, or a live presentation, or face-to-face discussion, or telephonic discussion. How you want, like, plan it accordingly. And you have to collect what is the needs, practical needs for that, what you are going to address, right? If you collect all these stats and data, and then practice yourself, and then on the day of presentation, on the day of meeting, that is an open state, I can say. State the reason for meeting. You start with your meeting, why you are going to why you are set up this meeting, why you are giving this presentation, what are you going to discuss, and why you are going to discuss this one, and what is the future needs, and why this change is needed right now. So open with that quote first, and then throughout your conversation, ask or discuss. It's going to be two-way conversation. Always make sure other person is aware of the situation, what is the current situation, and first convey that message to the audience or the opponent or the team members, and then explore the issues and concerns with the current situation, and use open-ended questions, and then say that with this change, and these are the advantages, and this is going to be our future focus, and we will be benefited out of it. And then ask questions repeatedly. Opponent person is understanding that, and he is along with you. And then, is there any negative impact or negative consequences, and what is his opponent thought. And you should understand both the conversation, like what is your thought and what is the opponent thought, and tally together, and then come up with the, whether to proceed with the change, or whether to stop the change. Like, you should be active discussion among the both the parties. This is going to be key steps in handling difficult conversation. You prepare, open, and discuss. And then helpful techniques in advance of conversation, before you start with your conversation, or before you start with your presentation, or before you start with your any meeting. What are the helpful techniques? And these are the techniques what I mentioned here. Do your homework and have accurate fact. So you have to do your homework and collect all the facts, and then be sure about that, and analyze if there is a possibility for an unfavorable response. So if you are proposing some changes, or if you are giving some seminars, and if you are giving some presentation, and you before in advance you think of, if the opponent or the audience reaction is unfavorable to you, and how you can handle that situation. All the angles, all the facts you have to think of in advance, and think through every possible scenario, the worst to the best reaction. And the moment you say, or moment you present your presentation, and assume that all the audience are against you, unfavorable to you, and then how you will handle that one. And then come to the best scenario. The moment you give presentation, it's going to be wonderful presentation, and all the audience are ready to accept your presentation. That is the best presentation, that is the best scenario. And the worst scenario is like all the opponents are not ready to accept your presentation, not favorable to you. Then how you will handle that situation? Think through that. And then the fourth point is, think through your ideas response based upon the possible scenarios, right? So you have to discuss internally, and then you have to think of different scenarios. Like, if some part of the people says no, some part of the people say yes, and all of the audience says no, and these are the different scenarios. And then you should collect the fact, and what happens if all the audience says no, and then how you can come up with a different approach. And then if all the audience says, how you will approach to the implementation of this change. So all you have to think through. And the fifth point is, practice in advance. Watch your body language and the words, right? So this is very, very important. And know your triggers. Like, if all the audience says that, no, and then they're unfavorable to you, and they're, not reacting favorable, not they're reacting which is triggering you, then how you will handle that situation. So you should know that, and then you should handle your situation cool and calm, right? Without, you should not be arrogant, and you should not be jump into conclusion. You have to listen, and then you have to handle those difficult situations. These are your, your techniques which will which can be done in advance before conversation. And next point, next slide, if you can see helpful techniques during the conversation, during the day of presentation, during the day of meeting, and during the conversation. Stay defenseless and clear. Always you should not be defenseless. You should be two-way conversation. Whatever opponent say, you have to react for that, and whatever you say, and then get the response from the opponent. And it should be clear in both the parties, and make the discussion a conversation rather than confrontation, right? It should be a conversation in both the direction. It should not be a one-way direction. And get to the point as quickly as possible. Don't drag any single topic a longer time. And seek to the understanding. Ask questions. Always ask questions. And listening is a very, very important key factor. I said you should be active listener. Listen, reframe, and ask a receiver if you heard correctly, and reframe it. Like, the moment opponent says something, and then you repeat it, and then you can get a confirmation you heard correctly if you have any doubt. And use a broken record technique when needed, right? Broken technique is one of the technique, right? In every school, the lecturer will use this technique, repeating the words again and again. And then use that broken word technique to convey your message strongly, and the opponent is agreeing with your words, and then he's listening your words. These are the key points for the, during the conversation. And if you have sign of conversation deterioration is like going your conversation into the worst situation. Like, watch out the body language. So if the presentation, like, the if the opponent is his body language and his mind is not in sync, means, it says that he's unwilling to have this conversation. And the second message is voice change, or pitch, tone, or loudness. So if he's not confident about his topic, or if he's not ready to continue with the conversation, you can see this pitch, tone, and loudness. These are getting changed again and again, so that that is going to be worst conversation. And words become less tactful and more defensive. And if the opponent is like defensive, and then the words are less tactful, and then he's dragging the same words again and again, it means then the he's not ready to continue with the conversation, and he's going to be defensive, and it is not going to be healthy conversation, and then it is going to lead to the argument, right? And you can observe the facial changes. There's a change in color, and tears, and sometimes he will be exhausted, and all these body and facial changes, you will see it. If he's not confident on his thought, and if he's not confident with the conversation. And then you can understand that conversation is going to be argument, and that is not going to be unfavorable to the either parties, right? These are the points you have to watch it out. And the fifth point is sudden animation of one party or both, right? So sudden, it's like acting like as if he knows that everything, and you don't want to listen. All those body language changes, you will observe it. And interest and disengagement, right? So the opponent is not ready to have this conversation, is not ready to continue with the conversation, and is showing his interest and disengagement. Then you will see that it is not going to be favorable to the both the parties, and it's better to stop your conversation at that moment itself. and blaming are minimal or no ownership, right? So if you are not owning your part, and if you're not owning your ownership, and definitely it is going to be bad conversation. These are the key, these are the signs you can understand whether it is going to be healthy conversation or unhealthy conversation, and then you will make it out with this, and then you can whether to continue your conversation or whether to stop your conversation. You can take a decision from this point. And with all this explanation, I'm coming to the summary. First of all, you have to watch out your avoidance. Like as I said, if anything, any change is coming, you always ask question and get more detail on that. And then if you are giving any presentation, and then you have to do your practice, and then in advance you have to collect all the facts. All this very very important role. And it is easy if we feel that is uncomfortable, we will try to avoid it. Rather than avoiding, you have to check it out, what is that and why we are doing it, and what is the future focus, and what is the impact, and what is the need of it. And then if you collect all these facts, and then you can easily adjust to that. And recognize the impact of your body language, and always practice your body language and voice of your tone, and the words you speak. These three are very very important key factors. You have to think of those. And actively listen. The active listening is one of the key skills. Actively listen for any conversation, and that will says that will convey the message to the opponent that you are actively listening, and you are more energetic and more enthusiasm to involve in this conversation. Be prepared for all your aspects in all the be prepared and for all the aspects, from the worst to the best conversation with all the scenarios. And manage reactions and broken breakdown, right? Manage your reactions, the how you can always think through what are the opponent reactions, and then breakdowns, what are your breakdowns when you are going to what is your trigger points. All you have to think through, and then come to the conclusion, right? And then end with your conversation. And this is going to be this conversation plays very very important role in our everyone's day-to-day life, and because we will come across thousands of conversation in day-to-day life. So you always know what is your part, and then how you have to speak, and then how you have to listen to the opponent words. These are very very important key techniques for avoiding all of these unhealthy conversation. And then you have to think of what are healthy component and unhealthy component for your conversation, and then you have to do a practice. I hope this is very informative and very helpful for our day-to-day life, guys. And if you have any concerns, always do comment in my YouTube channel. I'll come up with new topics. Thank you, guys.